review this then. It's a Hotpoint WM55. It's a first edition, except it's not badged up as a first edition. But it's first edition, either way. It falls under the same instruction manual as the first editions. So, I'll quickly go through them all. We've got a WM51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56. So the Hotpoint First editions were first launched in 1997 alongside with the Hotpoint Aquarius and Hotpoint Ultimas. The first edition was there for the basic range. It was an entry-level Hotpoint that you could buy, and essentially what it was using up was the old sort of panels from the previous WMs with a modified door and stuff like that. And that's essentially what it was doing, using up old stock. By the time you got to WM54, 55 and 56, a lot changed. Right, you had your WM51, which was an 800 spin machine. WM52 was a 1000 spin machine, and WM53 was a 1200 spin machine. They all came with the same timer, but the first 1997 lot had a much quicker program set than this, and that's because these later versions have a much longer colour fast cotton cycle, and because of the changes to the spin profile, it meant that intermediate spins and final spins are also slightly longer, adding on to that time. Right. The WM51, 52 and 53 also came with a GEC motor, while the WM54, which was a 1000 spin, updated timer with the longer timer, WM55, which is what we have here, which is a 1200 spin version with the updated timer, and a WM56, which I've never come across, but apparently that's an 1100 spin, and because it's a WM56, I'm wondering whether they brought 1100 out later than the 54 and 55. Possibly as a store exclusive or an individual retailer exclusive. Something like that. But if you notice, there was no 800 spin version of the later machine. That was dropped, and the original colours were all white or cream and brown. Was it white and brown as well? There might have been also white and brown. The later versions, like here, WM54, 55 and 56, only came in polar white. That was it. You wanted a colour, you wanted brown, you couldn't get brown anymore. You wanted a colour, you had to get an Aquarius. So if you wanted natural linen or zircon silver, yeah, you have to go for that. Program-wise, the Aquarius came with 10 wash programs. This come with 9 wash programs. But you're always better off buying this if you wanted the same amount of programs, because it actually has 10 programs. One's just not written on. That is simply all the only differences. It's still there on the timer and you can still select it. I'll show you later on. Not that it was a program you actually really missed out on either. Again, big difference between the Aquarius and the first editions is that the first editions, all of them, only came with 2 wash option modifiers. Now I couldn't actually remember whether the 1200 version came with a variable spin dial, but I'm thinking getting that confused with the first edition washer dryer that was also available that you could buy, and that was a 1200 spin washer dryer. Same kind of principle. Over the Aquarius washer dryers, you only had 2 wash options. And unlike the 1200 spin washer dryer, Aquarius washer dryer, which was already 62 or 64, which was this been based on, you didn't have variable spin. So the only options you got were economy and half load. I'll show you that in a minute. 9 programs, same wash drum, but for marketing purposes, this is a 5 kilogram drum. The Aquarius came with a 5.5 kilogram drum, and yet it's the exact same drum. No different. So the idea was you were paying that bit more money for the Aquarius to have a bigger load capacity, even though they did absolutely nothing to the drum physical size or the timer to compensate. Right, door handle, pull towards you and it opens it up. And again, a lot more basicness is going on. Now this came with no screw to hold the door band together. Never mind. I've got a feeling that this door seal probably has been changed because it's quite clean, mold free, and usually these do tear, unfortunately. More basic, bare bones, no nonsense is this door. Harking back, this is proper 9.5 stuff right here, right? So the Aquarius had basically two panels. The Aquarius and the Ultimas had obviously a different, squarish door, and that was also sealed as well. So you had your fascia side one side, and then obviously a back plate over the other side, and that would hide away obviously all these screws that you will not be able to see. On this, they're all exposed, so you can see them. Right, so we've got our model number there and our serial number. Don't ask me how to date it. It's a bit weird at this point. So they were using a 7 system, which is a bit bizarre, and I can't remember which numbers it is. It's not the 9-3, but I think it's something like the 1, 5, and 8, or no, was it the last 3, 1 and 10? So the 10's the week, and the 1 is the year. But the way you work it out is that you take 7 off. So I think if it was a 0, it'd be 2001. If it's a 1, it's 2002. So it could be 2002, but you can always correct me down below in the comments. I'm not entirely sure, but I do know that the base 7 then went completely once basically the Hotpoint factory shut over here, and it was a complete insert takeover by that point. And I think that was the last one, yeah. And then they went to the insert version after that, which made a lot more sense. 2001 to that could be 2002, 10th week 2002. Sound drum. We've got holes in the drum paddles, so they're not the solidified version. Door seal, got 2 little holes there, which go through. And then there's a hole there through that to drain it all out. I believe them 2 holes, sometimes it's 1 hole, sometimes it's a bigger hole. Let's re-record this. Yeah. Anyway, we've got 2 options that came with all the WM First editions. So no matter what WM51, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or the washer dryer versions, you had economy, which switched off the heater. So we have to rely on a hot only fill for the white cotton or colour fast cotton cycles, or a warm and hot fill for all the other cycles. It does state in the manual not to use it with H, because H doesn't heat anyway. If you use it with program A on the pre-wash, it will lower the temperature from 40 to 30. I'll explain more of that in a minute. And if you used it on the wool cycle, it would work, but then it wouldn't get hot enough. So economy is suggested to be used with lightly soiled laundry, and it will save you time, around 5 to 10 minutes. Because of how the timer works, the heater stage still happens, but the timer is always active. Right, then we've got the half load button. So it can only be used on the cotton programs, obviously B through to E. And what that does, it's made for if you're washing a half load or less. And what you will do is drop the rinse count from 4 to 3. And this will save you both time by around 5 minutes, as well as water. That's it. It combines the first and second rinse as one rinse. Right, then we've got the programs itself written down here. The programs are all the same on all the first editions, including the washer dryer. The program times are slightly different depending on whether you have the earlier WM51, 2 or 3 over the 54, 55 and 56. But near enough. You could probably add on around 5 minutes to most of these cycles if it is the later ones. And that's simply because the programming for the intermediate and final spins is a bit longer. However, Colour Fast Cotton 60, I'll tell you in a minute. Anyway, so we've got program A, pre-wash. This is done at 40 degrees. You can wash 3 kilograms of synthetics or 5 kilograms of cottons on it. And it ends with a short 400 RPM burst and anti-crease before stopping, and then you can select any cycle you want. The cycle time for the pre-wash is around 20 to 25 minutes. If you select economy, it will lower the temperature to 30. It won't wait to get to 30. It will effectively fill, switch on the heater the entire time, and then will advance to the intermediate spin. Basically, the intermediate spin and the pre-wash all last combined to just 10 minutes. Yeah. Program B is white cotton 95 with a pre-wash at 40. Right. It is 2 hours 35 minutes in total with a hot fill. The pre-wash obviously only takes some cold water, cold fill, but it will heat to 40 degrees. Now, the pre-wash takes around 20 minutes and will not have an intermediate spin after the pre-wash. So it'll just drain, go on to white cotton at 95, and the time for this is 20 minutes less. So it's 2 hours 15 minutes with a hot fill. Right, made for washing, of course, 5 kilograms max load of cotton laundry. Then obviously D, max load, again 5 kilogram, being a cotton cycle. Now, if it is a WM51, 52 and 53, time will take around 80 to 90 minutes. On this, I timed it and it took 2 hours 5 minutes, but that was with a cold only fill. Naturally, it will use a hot fill, I believe. If it does, it will only take around 10 minutes off that, so I think it's around 2 hours anyway, regardless. And that's because it has to now meet the new modern A-wash rating, effectively, for it. Then you got non-colour fast cotton at 40 degrees, obviously made for washing, a full load, 5 kilogram. And is a much shorter cotton cycle, so the entire wash takes around about 20 to 25 minutes to do. So total time, it's 65 minutes with the half load button and 70 minutes without it, or 70 to 75 minutes without the half load button. So yeah, fairly quick. So it'll do an intermediate spin after the wash, it'll do its first rinse with slow tumbles, intermediate spin, second rinse, intermediate spin, a faster intermediate spin, shall I say, at 800 RPM, final third rinse, intermediate spin, and then it will click here, which you can select, but it's not marked out. It's the final fabric softener rinse for the cottons, and full fast spin. Now it's marked out on the Aquarius timers with the little fabric softener icon, the flowery icon. Not here though, but it's still there, yeah? The notch is still there. Then we've got fast spin at 1200 RPM. It will finish with anti-crease stage, but only on the later timers like this. If it's on the WM51, 52 and 53, it won't do an anti-crease. It will just basically slow down and switch off. Then we've got program F. It is coloured synthetics at 50 degrees, max load, 3 kilograms, and took 60 minutes with a hot and cold fill. G is acrylics at 40 degrees. Max load again, 3 kilograms. And it's over and done with in about 47 minutes with our hot and cold fill. Then here, hidden away, is silks and printed acetates. Right, max load 1.4 kilograms or 3 pounds. At 30 degrees. It is here, you can select it, you can switch on the machine and it will still heat to 30. How about that? Now, interestingly, there's no 30 degree temperature stat in it. There's a 40, I believe there's a 40 degree, a 50 degree, and I think this version has a 60 degree as well anyway, so no, it's 40 degree. It used to be 40 degree, 50 degree and 85 degree. I think nowadays it's 40 degree, 60 degree and 85 degree. So I believe that if you use coloured synthetics it will heat to 40 but then do a timed heat. So what this 30 degree version does, even though you can't select it on the first editions, same on the Aquarius timers as well, it just does a timed heat to around 30 degrees. Then I've got program H. Now it takes in a hot and cold fill mix. There is no heat stage at all, it will just wash for about 8 minutes before finally draining. Made for quickly refreshing 0.9 kilograms of laundry, or £2, which to me has always made me laugh because it's a synthetic cycle. It's a quick wash, and yet you can quickly wash 3 kilograms in another 10 minutes using the Quilts program. So it makes no sense. Because the time for this is 35 minutes. Yeah, and it doesn't matter whether it's hot and cold fill or cold fill or anything, it's still 35 minutes. At least with acrylics, with a hot and cold fill, it's only 30 minutes longer. Makes no sense. Anyway, all these have a drain after the wash, followed by a first rinse with slow tumbles, intermediate spin, second rinse with faster tumbles, another intermediate spin, and then final rinse. Again, not marked out. Ready for the short spin. And it's short and slow spin because it does it at 900 RPM. Now, if you have a 1000 RPM spin machine, or the 800 actually, the WM51, long spin and short spin make sense because actually they both spin at basically full whack. However, on this version, it actually limits it to 900 on purpose. Right, then we've obviously got stop, and then we've got program J, which is your woolens. It says machine washable wool. Now, max load depends on what you're washing. It's 2.7 kilograms or £6 for washable blankets. Yeah, because this is back in a time when there was no such thing as duvets and used to be woolen blankets instead. So you used to wash these in your washing machine, but you could always wash a lot more than, say, jumpers. If you're washing wool jumpers that are machine washable safe, max load is 1.4 kilograms, which makes sense. When they kind of go 1.4 kilograms, it's roughly 3 jumpers. Anyway, it does a higher wash level, higher rinse level, all at a short, slow tumbles. Like I said before, with the economy option, you're not supposed to select it, but if you do, I believe the heater still kicks in, but it's then a timed period and will basically limit it to around 30 degrees or less. You won't hit 40. Anyway, it does 3 rinses with intermediate spins, all at higher water level, of course. And of course you can have final fabric softener rinse as a wool final fabric softener rinse, as well as wool short spin. The only difference is it doesn't do anti-crease tumbles at the end. Right. Then we've got on and off. So it's trying to engage the lock right now. So it's not on stop. There we go, we're on stop now. We've got our little green marker that comes out. So that's on, push it in, goes flush, and that's off. Right, so this is our detergent drawer. Now this is the updated, obviously, 97 Aquarius version drawer that came out. Very interestingly, so we've got the pre-wash section here, max level 150 millilitres. So you put your detergent in whether you're selecting program A or B. There's no actual stop for it, just like two little like chevrons it goes round instead. Bizarre but cool design. Then we've got the main wash compartment here. Max amount of powder is 300 millilitres of powder. But interestingly, you can take this out and turn it round, and we've got liquid dosing instead. Yeah, max level. If that goes in. Go in! Anyway, I'll go that way, sorry. Interesting. So you can take it out, but you can't put it back in. Anyway, in order to release the drawer, you can by pushing this down. This is slightly wearing by the looks of things, so over time it looks like this is pushed in slightly because it's supposed to sit on top here. But never mind, we pulled it out. Also believe that's wrong colour. Never mind, that's supposed to be green. So we've got this, it tells you there's powder. Turn it to the side and we've got liquid. Right. That goes in there, like so. There we go. So, once it's in like that, max level 150 ml. We've got markers, so we've got 50, 100, 150. Sorry, it's 200 ml. Then we've got our fabric softener. We've got two levels, basically half and max level. Half level 55 ml, max level 110 milliliters. And that was rather useful back in the day because a standard dose of Lenore or Comfort was 110 milliliters. Yeah, no need to measure it out into the little cup first, you just filled it up exactly to the max level. That also meant that if you're doing a half load, you could just fill it up to halfway instead of measuring out half. Simple. Load. So yeah, they are quite creased and stuff like that. So, yes, the economy will switch on the heater for a very timed period. So you can use it on any program. Just be aware, because it's only timed, you can't determine the actual temperature of the wash. That also means, of course, if you're taking on hot and cold, and the hot is also cold, it isn't going to be warm. Yeah. But I kind of like the little economy feature in that way, because it does only do a timed heat. It will save time on your wash. It is good for lightly soiled laundry. It does kind of what it says in the tin. Half load. I do like the fact it links rinses 1 and 2 together rather than say half the water load. It makes more sense. I always prefer machines deleting a rinse rather than lowering the water level. I like the spin performance mostly. So this 1200 spin was pretty poor back when this was kind of out, but the 900 RPM short final spin on the synthetic side means that that also spins a lot better than all of its rivals. So, yin and yang kind of thing. Build quality. Actually, this is one of the much rarer Hotpoints that actually pretty much fully works, but you can hear the belt kind of semi-slipping a little tiny bit at the back, which can be adjusted, whatever, and make a little bit tighter. It's fine. But strangely, this is the first one where it's not bouncy. All Hotpoints are generally quite bouncy at this age, and this isn't. Also, generally speaking, most Hotpoints are not smooth with the power delivery. But sure enough, this is. Yeah, so neatly, it gets pretty good kind of smooth spin result. You know, it's pretty smooth spinning up and down. I mean, in the sense of the fact that it's not down to the FHP motor, it's just down to the timer mod and stuff like that. The FHP motor is quieter than the GEC, of course. It always was. It makes it more reliable. These FHP motors will happily go through a set of brushes every 15 years rather than every 2 years or 5 years. They don't eat through brushes, and they can sustain, all FHP motors can sustain 1400 RPM for quite a long time. The GECs can't. So the FHP motors, yes, they don't sound as good, but they do sound unique. Programs wise, weirdly, this can wash stuff, I found. Albeit I did put it on Coolfast Cotton 60, but it washed it without, it washed curry off without the need of vanish. It just used the bold, which is fine, which is unusual. Even on the white wash with vanish, it didn't quite remove all the stuff from the cleaning rags, but no machine ever does, so I don't really blame it. But it did remove a stain off a tea towel that was on, say, here. So it did remove so it's quite good at removing stains. Strangely, it's quite quick. It does everything it says on the tin, and it's cheap. So just in perspective, if you were to get a first edition 1000, I believe they were £269, whereas if you were to get an Aquarius 1000, they were like £330 or something like that, an extra 60 quid more. And I think the same goes with like this. I think the WM55, again, I think this is like 289 or 299, whilst the 1200 spin Aquarius was 369. Although you did get variable spin on it, so up to you. And it also gave 2 extra options as well. So up to you whether you want that or not. Right. Because of the price point, it makes it cheaper, it makes it a good rival against, say, Hoover and Indesit, and it does perform a lot better and more reliably than both of them put together. Yeah. So, if I was to base it on that, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10 compared to them. However, compared to pretty much everything at the time, it's going to get a 7.5 out of 10. Okay, I'm going to split it down the middle and give it an 8 out of 10. Because, to be fair, this is pretty honest for what it was. Simple, cheap, basic, easy to repair, Hotpoint washing machine. And I mean, it's the old style tub, so, you know, the heater's at the front, you want to change the bearings, you do that in 45 minutes. What more do you want? The FHP motor, the updated timer, means it gave much better wash results than the previous generation. So just bear in mind, while I'll give this an 8 out of 10 for its wash performance, the older WM51, 52 and 53 would have washed worse. So, again, balancing. Probably give them like 7 out of 10. But that being said, these are... overall, when they brought these out in '97, these Aquarius and First editions were far better than any of the 95s, you know, from the 80s. The 90s Aquarius timer fixed a lot of problems, to be honest, and then the plastics really started to go really good. So much so that yellowing doesn't happen. Yeah? And they are very strong. Occasionally these can break around the door, but it's more down to the fact of overloading than anything else. Realistically, they just don't break. Or break that easily, shall I say. Over, let's say, the old 95s. And even the early WMs. Yeah. Personally, I've got a bit of attachment to these because, of course, I grew up with them. And I had a 95 washer dryer, so I had a 99 washer dryer, which matches the 95s. But I had the WD61 and 64. And the WD64 I had was from 2002. If this is a 2002, this would have been sold alongside the WD64, despite having Hotpoint Aquarius WMAs and first edition FEWs on the market as well. Yeah, you would have had both. You would have had this and FEWs, and you would have had WM83 and 85 on the market. Just crazy. But of course it was to use up all the parts that were lying about the Hotpoint factory. Mental. Cool. Right, I hope you enjoyed this review of this not so old Hotpoint. But again, please let me down below the actual age using the serial number. I do think it's 2002, but double check me down there. Let me know what you like or don't like about this machine. It's pretty retro, you know, and pretty simple. So, give us a like if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you little guys in the video. So, if you haven't subscribed for more washing machine content, do that now. Hit that button down below, and I'll see you lot in another video. So, bye for now.